Okay, welcome to the first ever Full Throttle Thursday. Well, there's about the same amount of people that are on Full Access Friday, so I guess it's more like driving in the fast lane, going about 48 miles an hour with slow jazz on. But hopefully we'll kick it up to a Lamborghini here eventually. But thank you all for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. Want to talk a lot about the craziness of the last 24 to 48 hours. I
Yeah.
mean, the information that is coming out, fast and strong from everything going on is nuts. What do we know? Well, we know that the app that both rental cars were used, the same app, this Tamu, whatever it's called. And then we also know that the one guy was a Green Beret, the cyber security guy, he was special forces, and the other guy was in the military, and he was, I think, lieutenant colonel or somewhere around there, lieutenant sergeant or something. And so you have two military guys, and more importantly, they both knew each other. And they knew each other and they were training together at Fort Bragg
Yeah,
in North Carolina. But yet
truly
they're
so.
both gone. They're both dead. Dead men tell no tales. Nobody knows what their goal was other than terrorism. We don't know who they were working with. Clearly, the
Or
truck was rented and driven through Eagle Pass, Texas by somebody else. The
Hmm.
Cybertruck guy apparently was married, and I guess his ex-wife was a diehard Trump hater, basically. So he could have been radicalized. His family has pushed back and said no, he supported President Trump, but he's not around because apparently he didn't use a 22 apparently to shoot himself in the head. No, he used a 50 caliber Desert Eagle. To give you an idea what kind of gun that is, remember the Dirty Harry movies with the
yeah.
big giant gun? Yeah, he put that. That's like putting a shotgun against your head.
It's
So here's my
ridiculous.
question. If the quote body was burned beyond all recognition,
Oh yeah. How
how do they
convenient.
know that he shot himself in the head first? That would be one of the questions that I would have. Now, the authorities are tiptoeing around saying, well, some of them are saying it's terrorism. Some of them are saying there's not enough evidence to show that there's terrorism. Clearly, in my opinion, these two incidents are definitely related. So let's start with I would assume Glenn, right? Was Glenn probably close to number one here? Glenn, what are your thoughts here? What do you make of this? Is this an isolated incident, or is this something that is just the tip of the iceberg, like I said yesterday?
I believe it's tip of the iceberg. I watched the video today that you put up, and that when I was seeing it yesterday, and they were saying that, the one in uh New Orleans, and then right after that, they were saying about the one in Las Vegas. And it was like right around the same time that all this
Yeah,
happened. And that's what went through my head.
as if they were coordinated.
Yeah. And
Oh yeah.
then, especially when they were on the news saying that they're not saying whether or not they're, one of the same or not. And then the more that gets into it, they are saying, like you were just said, they're both they were in the army, they were friends, they both came out of Texas or whatever, and and rented the vehicles. I didn't know that until you mentioned it, in the video.
Mm-hmm.
So, they
Okay.
I don't know where you got that information, but I hadn't
Well,
heard it from anywhere else.
I got lots of information from a lot of different sources, and I double check and triple check and quadruple check them just before I go in front of the camera, and that is all accurate. Gail, let me ask you, what are your thoughts here? Is this an isolated incident? Why is this cyber truck being parked in front of Trump Towers in Las Vegas? I mean, obviously President Trump was not there, but is this to send a message? Like, is this like The Godfather when they cut the head off and they put it in the bed, or they send him a dead fish? I mean, what are your thoughts?
Talking to me? Are you
Hmm.
talking to me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think they should start asking some of the generals that hate Trump, and also the FBI, was did not they were getting it that it wasn't terrorism at first and all that stuff. I think they're all working together to send a message, and maybe they're going to do something else more radical. And I think President Trump, I don't think you can trust the military either. The leaders in the military, they're all in on it too. And these people
Yeah.
were definitely in on it. So
Sadly,
that
I agree with you because, again, these are two military officers, and as far as I can tell, they're both Americans. They were both born
How
here,
the fuck are
which
you
means
supposed
that they went through our military training and then turned on us. That's that's terrifying when you think about it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I
Carl,
think
what about you?
I would
What
kill
are your
them all.
thoughts? Carl,
You're muted.
different night and it's still the same response. Let's go, buddy. I'll switch it to Tuesdays. How's that?
Come on. Come on, what is it?
What is what?
I'm saying, what are
What do
your
you want to
thoughts
know?
here?
Do you have any thoughts?
What are your thoughts? I mean, is this an isolated incident? Is this something that's going to continue on? What do you think?
Oh, I think I think it was planned. Sure seems like it.
Hmm.
I
Who do you
there's gonna
think
be
planned
more.
it? That'd be the other question.
She thinks there's going to be more. My wife thinks there's going to be more.
I would have to agree with Elizabeth on that. I think there is going to be more. And of course, we have January 6th just around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen on January 6th, if anything at all? So we're going to have to figure that part out as well. Jeff and Pam, what are your thoughts here on this? So we know that the connection between Fort Bragg, we know that they both use the same rental company to rent the vehicles, and they're both ex-military, and they're both Americans. What does that tell you?
Okay, well, I listened to Jeffrey Prather because he's ex-military, also intelligence. So Prather said that the media is going to try, and the government's going to try to blame this on Trump, that Trump is not being briefed by the
Right.
CIA and the FBI. He's refusing anything from them because he knows they're going to lie to him. So that way now they can turn around and they can say, well, we were gonna warn Trump about this stuff, but he just didn't want to hear it. So that's one thing Prather said. And then he also brought up the point that the explosives were, quote, half-assed for that guy's military training. He was able, if he really wanted to blow that place to smithereens, he would have done it. So that's another point. And then he also said, I said, well, how can the military coerce these people to go against them and to kill themselves? And Prather said, well, they threaten their families. They say, we're going to kill your wife, we're going to kill your children in their own beds. So I don't know if Jeff has a thought or
I mean,
not.
yeah, Jeff, go
I
ahead.
expect 95% of the news incidents for the next 30 days are going to be attacks on Trump of different styles. This one is probably a way for the FBI to be in on it, and possibly because he's refusing their help, but it's the FBI's job to prevent these things, not to implement them. So I just think it's attacks against Trump, and we're going to see more of them. And if the guy, it looked kind of silly in the back of his Tesla truck that he had what looked like gasoline cans and fireworks. And like Pam said, it's kind of a Rube Goldberg explosion for somebody from the military.
Okay. Let's play. I like what you're saying, and I want to, it brought up an immediate point. What if, because President Trump is refusing, I don't know if he's refusing or if they're just cutting him out of the process. Maybe it's a little bit of both, not getting these security briefings. What if, because what if they know that he's not getting these security briefings, and because he's not getting them, what if they're planning and plotting something that he doesn't know about because he's not getting them? Did anyone think of that?
Yeah.
That's the scary part, that could be the case here. Carol, what are your thoughts here? I mean, we saw everything going on. We know January 6th is around the corner. We know the inauguration is after that. are we expecting to see more of these types of, either lone wolf attacks or coordinated attacks? What do you think?
Unfortunately, yes, we're getting a bad start off to the year. I'm at a point, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but somebody knows. And there's a lot of dirty business going on, but I'm at a point where I don't want to be in a large crowd anymore. I mean, you couldn't pay me. I've never been to Mardi Gras, but like you couldn't pay me to go to Mardi Gras, or I'm at that point. I don't want myself or a loved one in any large crowds. Things are, and I'm worried whoever the cabal, the globalist, whoever, I'm worried they're unleashing stuff. They want everything to be horrible because they don't want President Trump to step in and make America great again. People are selling out our country, and they're going to pay for that.
No question about it. And I agree with you about the large crowds. And obviously, the inauguration is what I've been talking about in particular, that President Trump should completely forego doing the inauguration. And again, he's been a wartime president his entire presidency, and he's in it now as well. Whether it's domestic or foreign, it doesn't matter. The enemies within have declared war on this man. And so he's a wartime president. So he ought to be sworn in. And actually, Congress, Louis Gohmert just talked about this today, that there are protocols for that when you can be sworn in legally, become president, and you don't have to do this big spectacle. And from there, then you shoot the drones out of the sky, you clear out and make sure that there's no imminent threats. And then if you want to do an outside event or an indoor event or celebrate or whatever, then fine, you can do that. But to do that now with all these drones flying around and now, cyber trucks blowing up in front of the door of your hotel, and that's supposed to not be a sign. It's pretty incredible right now. Liam, what are your thoughts on this? Clearly we know that there's a military connection. They were together at Fort Bragg. They more than likely knew each other, and they both used the same rental company for their vehicles.
Don't want to say anything? Sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna pretty much second it, everyone else's opinion. It's just too many coincidences for it to be a random attack. I mean, it's got to be the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we can hope that future attacks be forwarded, that Trump is ahead of the game here, but
They won't let him.
we got a few days to go till inauguration, and we just absolutely have to be sure that he's keeping himself safe. And like Carol said, that we avoid these large crowds. I don't know, maybe don't storm DC on January 6th this year. Not in a bad way, of course, but I'm saying like gather there for the historical things that go on. Just be careful.
Gotcha. Jason, let's go to you on this one. So we saw what happened in the past 24, 48 hours. Do you feel like these are connected, number one, and number two, should be worried that there's going to be more attacks leading up to January 6th and even to the inauguration?
Well, I definitely think it was coordinated. It definitely, of course, connected, and I definitely think more are coming, especially around the time when he gets inaugurated. And and these people will do anything to prevent him from taking power. I really do. I really believe that. And it's not Biden, but like you said, the people behind Biden, the people in the intelligence community or whoever. So I am really worried about the spectacle on Inauguration Day. And I really think that exactly what you said, that it should be done inside and start doing commands from in a bunker. I really do believe that.
Yeah, sadly, that's something that he needs to take pretty seriously. And I've been screaming for the last couple of weeks, months, if not a month or so since the election was over.
You said you did. You said you did an op-ed. If you wanted to do an op-ed for the Gateway Pundit, and they didn't take you up on it. Now all of a sudden someone else did, and now they're listening to that person. I mean, you've had rapport with these people, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly do, but like just going by, let me see here. Where was that? Jim Hoff, here it is. So here's what I wrote, I wrote this, like I said, back on what was the date? November 13th. And I said at the time, can I do a story? This was November 13th, 9:36 p.m., Wednesday. Can I do a story on the Federal Vacancies Act of 1998 and show why every single Trump nominee will serve in his administration without even being confirmed? I want to shut these rhinos down if I can write about it for you. Never got a response. And here we are now in January, and an article is out right away. And Louis Gohmert, by the way, was on Real America's Voice saying that he's worried about the inauguration as well. But besides that, there's now articles that are talking about getting the confirmations done and going through and using the Federal Vacancies Act. But yet, he ignored me for whatever reason. He quote unquote apologized to me, but I don't know. We'll see what happens from there. But one thing that I was going to bring up is that you're correct in the fact that these are like signs, if you will, to President Trump. Because look, they know what's going to happen next, right? They understand the gravity of the situation. They understand what they did is all illegal, unethical, immoral, and felonies. And they know that as long as Biden doesn't pardon everybody, they're going to be scattered like rats trying to protect themselves. So if you know that you're in that position, why on earth would you be telling everybody what you're going to do? And if you remember, because President Trump just yesterday, I think, made a moratorium to his cabinet choices to zip it up, to stop going on media and telling everyone what you're going to do. And the worst offender of all is Stephen Miller. I love him. Great. He's aggressive. But my God, I mean, he's on Maria, he's on Megan, he's on Jesse, he's on all these shows going, on day one, this is what we're gonna do. It's like, why don't you give them a fucking map to what you're gonna do and write it all out and hand it to them with flowers? My goodness, it's so stupid for them to continue to do that. So that was one thing that I was pointing out. Let's see, Little Mystery, you're joining us right now. So we know that the military connection is there from Fort Bragg. We know that they use the same app in order to rent these vehicles. And now they're both dead and they're both ex-military. What are your thoughts here? Is this an isolated incident? Or is this part of a larger scale operation? What are your thoughts?
Definitely larger scale. They always know what's about to happen. Look how they always show it to us in movies, cartoons, even video games, so forth.
I know. The Illuminati, they know it.
Yeah. And if Israel can keep better track of things and defend themselves, we should be able to do the same, but they don't want us to do that. Everything is done intentionally.
That's the scary part. I mean, if you have an administration that's illegitimate and they were willing to do what they did in 2020 to steal power and stop President Trump, why would we give them the benefit of the doubt that they don't have some type of plot or ploy or plan in place, especially with him not getting these security detail briefings? I mean, I don't know. You don't have to be Jacques Cousteau to put two and two together, right? So it's pretty frightening to see what's going on. I'm worried about January 6th, not from our standpoint, but maybe from Antifa, BLM, who knows what they're planning on doing. It might not be anything big. I think the inauguration, you're going to see some violence around different cities and blue cities, without a doubt. I mean, we saw what they did in 2016, right? Or 2017 at the time, where they were throwing, Molotov cocktails and they were burning down the Bank of America building and smashing in the glass all over the place. It was a nightmare. And of course, I think he called in the National Guard right away to kind of clear it up. But here we are, and nothing has changed. They still hate this man, and now they probably hate him even worse. So who knows what's going to happen? And the scary part is that if he's not getting these security briefings, he's really playing with fire to do his inauguration outside. That's just the way that I see it.
Oh, and what about the mysterious fog that's been making people sick?
Yeah, I've heard about that too.
What about, my daughter told me about that.
Yeah. What kind of chemical is that? Where is that coming from? is that something that's going to be, God forbid, more widespread, right? I mean, right now it's isolated in one area,
No,
but
it's
is
let's see,
that,
New York, parts of California. I think San Diego said they had it.
see, I heard it was in Orange County and I heard it was in
Uh-huh.
San Diego, but I didn't
And
hear it was in New York yet.
oh yeah, big time in New York and Cedar, Texas. I
Hmm.
can't think of the other states. I was
And
trying
they
to
don't know what it is, right?
no,
They
but
haven't said what it is.
Somebody knows what it is.
like a chemical.
Scary stuff.
Probably the same maniacs who are trying to change the weather.
Yeah, well, it could be. Definitely could be. I mean, that's as dangerous as it gets, trying to
Yeah, Josh,
manipulate the weather.
it's also in Northern California and Nevada.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
is?
forgot Walter. I got to get Walter in here. Walter, I didn't see you there. I'm sorry about that. I guess you're in the dark. But what are your thoughts here? I mean, the military connection, the rental company connection, now they're both dead. Cybertruck on fire, blowing up in front of Trump Tower. I mean, is this like sleeping with the fishes? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's very sad that it shows how corrupted even the military has become, that these two reasonably high-ranked gentlemen commit these acts of terror. But one thing I want to note that's actually quite humorous is when the FBI agent got on the microphone and affirmatively stated this is not a terrorist act. Technically, she divested herself of jurisdiction. At that point forward, the FBI has no jurisdiction, and she's so stupid, she's going to say that on a microphone. But
That's
anyway,
a great point.
This is just classic governmental intimidation. Unfortunately, if you live in New Orleans, you really should be looking over your shoulder every second of every day. Anyway, today it was, I mean, that day it was a car as opposed to the usual gunfire. I do have to say that I'm disappointed that when this guy started hitting people, that Louisiana armed citizens didn't light him up. I mean, Louisiana has constitutional carry now, and I know lots and lots and lots of people that carry. And if I see a car hurling towards me, you can bet I'm going to light him up.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's a good point. Why didn't the people that are armed at the celebration for New Year's Eve, unless they, I don't know, did they do metal detectors? Did they not allow guns in or something? I mean, that wouldn't make any sense because they have reciprocity laws in Louisiana. So you're right. Why didn't they light him up when they saw the truck and just start shooting him before he had an opportunity to run these people over? I mean, 15 people lost their lives.
Well, that's what we need. That's what, in my opinion, that's what we need when they do these random terrorist acts. Citizens need to say enough. I'm going to protect myself. So if you think this guy's going to drive down the street next week and kill 75 people, I don't think so. He's going to drive down the street and maybe get one or two before the citizens take care of it, before the law enforcement arrives.
Exactly. And how many times have we heard that a good guy with a gun stopped a bad guy with a gun, right?
Well, can I say one thing? I truly appreciate, I forgot what county it was, but in Florida, where a citizen shot and killed one of two home intruders, and the sheriff actually said in the press conference, "This is Florida. If you break into someone's home, we encourage you to shoot them."
There you go. Probably Sheriff Grady Judd, I think his name is. He's like the younger version of Sheriff Arpaio. He's a badass, and he's definitely somebody that doesn't take any garbage from anybody. So yeah, well, look, Florida has stand your ground laws. You know, I think Arizona does too, but not too many other places.
They badass like you?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I'm not shooting anybody in my home, but who knows? I mean, if I had to, I guess I would. But I wanted to talk about this because this just broke, and I'm not even sure how many people have even heard about this. But Biden is trying to sabotage President Trump's ability to make us energy independent again by passing this pretty horrific rule. And apparently, from what I gather, let me see if I can, here it is right here. So Biden is preparing to issue a decree permanently banning new offshore oil and gas development in some coastal waters, locking in difficult to revoke protections for sensitive marine areas during his final weeks in the stolen White House. Biden is set to, within days, issue the executive order barring the sale of new drilling rights in portions of the country's outer continental shelf, according to people familiar with the effort who asked not to be named because the decision has not been made public. Biden's planning using a declaration that is rooted in a 72-year-old law that gives the White House wide discretion to permanently protect U.S. waters from oil and gas leasing without explicitly empowering presidents to revoke the designations.
How can he enforce that?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but all he has to do is reverse all that with his own executive orders.
That's what you would think. However, let me see if I can find the info on it. Here it is. Wait. So apparently President Trump used this similarly, but to change things the other way. Supporters of the 1953 Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act, which governs offshore oil and gas development, note that Congress included a provision giving presidents wide discretion to permanently protect waters from leasing, but it didn't explicitly grant them the authority to undo those designations. So here's my thought, and you can tell me whether you agree or disagree. If they're trying to do this and they're trying to basically handicap President Trump from delivering on his promise of lower gas prices, lower energy prices, and making us energy independent once again, why doesn't President Trump just ignore it completely and just, I'm president. I don't care what you say. What is my EPA and Lee Zeldin going to sue me? No. Is my Attorney General Pam Bondi going to prosecute me? No. Why not just ignore it and do it anyway? At least that's what I would think. So we'll start with a Little Mystery and we'll go back around the other direction. What are your thoughts on this story?
Oh boy. I just don't understand why Trump or Musk, as much as I can't stand Musk, still hasn't done anything to prove that Trump won in 2020. So nothing that Biden says or does can even count.
Fair enough. I mean, look what they did with the student loans, right? They just ignored the Supreme Court, didn't they?
Exactly.
Exactly. They just ignored the mandates, didn't they? Of course. So, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And why don't we just ignore this rule? At least that's what I think. Walter, what are your thoughts on this? You're an attorney. Go ahead, Walter.
He's doing it, Carl.
There you go.
Well, I think that what would solve all of these problems, all of the government intimidation and all of the prospective violence, and I've been saying this for the longest time, COVID prosecutions. Once Trump gets in office, one of the first things he needs to do is direct his attorney general to begin investigations and prosecutions. Because once he starts that, every single person who has political influence in the Democrat Party will instantly be on the defensive. They won't have time, money, or attention to do all of this stuff that they're planning to do once they are served with process or given notice that they will be prosecuted. Once they start that, these people will abandon their plans to save their own behinds. He needs to do that. He needs to get state attorney generals active. He needs to get local district attorneys active. If federal, state, and regional attorneys get coordinated and put this effort in, there's not enough money in the world to stop it. And that's what he needs to do, because this will put the Democrats on their back foot and on their heels. They won't have the time and the money to plan these mass attacks, to activate all their psychos. That's what he needs to do. That's his best offensive move right now.
See, now I agree with you, but what happens if Biden and this fake regime then give carte blanche pardon power to all the heads of every single big pharma company, to every single Democrat governor that put in these harsh restrictions? You know, that's what I'm worried about, to be honest. But it goes back to saying what I've been saying all along. They should have, when they had their cabinet, they should have put every single person and said, look, if you're chosen to run X department, you have to sign this pledge that when asked by the media what you are planning on doing, you will say, sorry, but you'll have to just wait until we take power January 20th. In other words, we should have never, ever said anything to anyone at all, so they wouldn't know what our plans were or our targets were. Now, we've been blabbering, you know, for a month and a half, 2 months on how, you know, what we're going to do.
Yep.
So naturally, if they want to protect these people, they can do, you know, they can pardon them. That's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm worried about. But I agree, if they're not pardoned, then yes, that is definitely one of the first prosecutions that must take place, because that will deter them from ever doing this ever again. Jason, what are your thoughts on this as well? So we have Biden trying to handicap or kneecap President Trump's ability to make us energy independent again with this, you know, 70-something-year-old or 50, 60-year-old rule that is hard to just reverse with an executive order.
Well, I think this whole administration has done for the past 4 years went up against the Constitution. So you know what? What's good for the goose is good for the gander, like you said. Screw them.
That's what I said. And you know what? I've actually went on a couple of shows recently, and they asked me the question, well, Josh, what happens if they pardon everybody? And I said, so what? And they go, what do you mean, so what? I said, prosecute them anyway. Well, you can't do that. I know that. We all know that. But did it stop them before? No. So we might as well bankrupt these people. Let's hurt them. Let's put them in a financial bind. We know that we can't get convictions. But if they also don't answer our subpoenas, they're going to jail for 4 months. They'll get the Bannon and Navarro treatment.
That's right.
And they were like, wow, Josh, that's a great idea. I never really thought about that. I said, yeah, because you're probably not as a big vindictive prick as I am. I want to see retribution and revenge. I want to see these people suffer. I want to see them digging in the dumpster for a peach pit. Okay, that's what I want to see happen. Is it going to happen? I don't know, because I don't think Trump and his administration is going to be as radical, revengeful as I want them to be. I'll certainly suggest it, and I'll keep talking about it. But that's what I want to see happen. So I don't know. We're going to have to see what happens. Carol, what about you? What are your thoughts? Are you there? Are you with the cats? All right, we'll go to Liam. We'll come back to her. Liam, what are your thoughts here about this? So Biden wants to basically stop President Trump from lowering energy costs by using this executive order and this old law from like 1953.
2 things. One, I'm sure there's many other places to drill that will get the oil prices down. Number 2, like you said, you just override the silly executive order. I mean, from what I understood, I read the article earlier, seems like a paperweight. You really want to get the prices down, lower inflation, all that. It's just drill, baby, drill.
Yeah, and I think you can do that with ANWR, right? The Alaska National Wildlife Refuge. But again, he might try to throw this rule. See, what's happening is the green freaks are pressuring the fake administration. They're pressuring them to protect all these different lands and all these different areas, and then even naturalize more national parks and make new national parks in the next couple of weeks. Like, they want to absolutely just screw President Trump as best they can. And he needs to understand that, and he needs to fight against it. Carol, you were out there feeding the cats there for a little bit, but what are your thoughts? I don't know if you had a chance to hear. Biden has decided to try to kneecap President Trump's ability to make us energy independent so that he can't fulfill one of his election promises, which is to lower gas prices. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, what can you say about Biden? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just insanity. I mean, it really is. And I was thinking of something a while back that says kind of, I don't know what to say about that. He's an idiot, and whoever's pulling his strings is an idiot. But what did he actually do? What did he actually say he did for his presidency is what I want to know. Like even Obama, he did Obamacare. I mean, it sucked, but at least he could say, I did this, I did that. Obama did Obamacare and certain whatever. What did Biden do? He really didn't do, it's odd. He didn't do nothing.
He
He
should
didn't
have
do
He don't
anything
have
stand.
except
one good
destroy
thing to
things.
say. You know, he's an idiot. I don't know what to say. He's an idiot.
You know
Yeah,
what
I
he
can't
did?
wait until we're done talking about this
You
putz.
you know what Biden did? He appointed, the term Peter Principle. That's what he did for everybody that's in important positions. Appointed a people that were incompetent, that are not cannot handle the position.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, look at the disasters that he appointed in all these different positions. Weak, feckless, fake women. I mean, just fruitcakes, all of them. And we're actually going to go back to sanity. We're going to go back to, professionalism. We're going to go back to qualified people again. And I can't wait for it to start. Jeff and Pam, what are your thoughts here? So, would you do what I'm doing, or what I would suggest, which would be like just ignore the whole thing and let them sue and go anyway? That's what I would do.
Well, I like those ideas, and I like Walter's idea pursuing the COVID, and maybe he could comment on a couple other ideas. I believe there's some kind of a method to sunset a law, especially back to 1953. Maybe Trump's, it would have to be by a committee. I think the committee that controls that, I don't know which one. I think it's through the committees that would do that. And also reverse kind of the opposite idea. We could maybe use that against these morons that want to put offshore wind facilities out, is killing the whales and is a terrible idea.
God.
And then finally get another couple of things, and then Pam might have something, but these Utah brothers, Brunson,
Yeah.
they still have their case, I think. And in addition to that, Trump has some really important documentation that he did prior to January 6th that I don't know that Pelosi is aware of it, but it's in the congressional record. He's got something to fight January 6th that might also fight then the phony election. And in addition to that, New California State still has an open lawsuit where I think given a fair trial, they would have a very good chance of removing all 55 California electoral votes from the 2020 election, which means that Biden was never president, and
Right.
all of his decrees are gone, along with
Yeah.
probably 200 Congress members.
The issue with the Brunson brothers, and again, I love their effort, I love their patriotism, and I honestly wish them success. But they haven't been successful because of the red tape, because of the bureaucracy, and quite frankly, because the Supreme Court and John Roberts wouldn't take the cases. When the Supreme Court doesn't want to get caught in a predicament, they just say they don't have standing, or they don't take the cases. One of the reasons that the Trump campaign leading up to the election was so successful is that they were filing lawsuits in a proactive way rather than a reactive way. Therefore, judges knew that there was no votes that were being counted yet, so they could step in and stop anything that is either nefarious or illegal. And that's exactly what happened. So I think President Trump and his team learned that if you are going to file election lawsuits, you damn well better do it before the votes are counted, because afterwards, these judges, there's like an unwritten rule that basically states that once the people have had a chance to vote, it doesn't matter whether they're fraudulent or not. They don't want to get involved because they don't want to overturn elections. And that's what happened in 2020. So like I've been saying, create through an executive order the Department of Election Integrity, fill it with forensic auditors, and boom, let them go and investigate all these different places and different races across the
The two
country.
angles from New California State were, number one, every single mail-in ballot from all 58 counties was missing legally required language. Newsom subsequently fixed it by taking away that law that required special language, but that doesn't change the 2020 fact that all 58 counties, every write-in vote was missing the language. So all the votes, the law states or stated that such ballots shall not be counted. And then the other point that they were making was that Padilla, who was the guy that was supposed to certify the election, never certified the election, but this coward Mike Pence counted it anyway. And that's what January 6th was all about, of course. But they have two really good points that the 55 California votes should never have been counted. And Pam, did you have something else?
Well, my thought about the drilling and the laws about that is our city has already declared we're going to have zero emissions, I think, by 2035. I mean, they just made a rule and then they fight that.
Yeah. It can't happen. I mean, it's literally, it's probably just impossible for any state, whether California or any other state, to be able to reach a zero emissions mandate. You just can't do it. So it's an implausible rule or law. I don't know if it's going to be challenged. It might not be challenged in California because the California legislation is all to the left and they obviously want this. So it would have to come from either environmental groups on the right or other politicians perhaps that are on the right in California that would be able to challenge it. Or it would have to come maybe even from our own EPA. They might be able to challenge it too. It is a state. Well, I don't know that. I'm not sure if the jurisdiction would work. They probably would be because technically the EPA is over all, right, of the environments. And so Environmental Protection Agency. So they're probably over the states, but that's a good point. It's hard to say really, that's just not a feasible, realistic goal. So I would assume at some point it's going to get challenged. So, all right, who's up next? Carl, the man of many words. What are your thoughts here, bud, on this offshore drilling? Would you just do what I would suggest and just ignore the rules and let them sue? Go ahead, you're muted again.
I just tell them, screw the rule. Fuck
there
the
you
rule.
go. That's exactly what. Hang on, I gotta just text this real quick.
Yeah, the Biden administration, they did all kinds of crap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it's time for us to do our crap and go after them.
Exactly. That's why I was saying ignore the pardons, ignore it all, and just bankrupt these people.
Go after these SOBs.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Gail, what are your thoughts here on the drilling fiasco?
On anything, I think Trump and people like Charlie Kirk, they should all get together quietly and don't say it. Try to and see if we can get lawyers to have class action suits to every individual in that administration, and to reimburse people who have been harmed by everything this administration has done, whether they've made their lives more miserable with rotten energy or whatever, COVID, whatever, and just do that. It is, like you say, to bankrupt them. And I would like to see them individually bankrupt, make sure that they just don't. They should have gone after them with the RICO Act and everything else years ago, but nobody ever did.
Right.
They're criminals. They're all criminals.
They're all criminals. And, I've been told by some people that my idea is so, quote, radical, extreme right wing by the people that hate me, that they can't even believe that anyone would give me any airtime at all to say it. But I've been told that for years. And the bottom line is what I am suggesting to do, I know that prosecutions will not come from it, but I don't care because I want to drain them financially. I want them to spend their life's fortune, their children's future college education on keeping themselves out of a jail cell or just fighting this in general. Because
You should
even
all
if
be
a
flipping
judge,
burgers.
yeah, even if a judge dismisses it, you can still, get them with something else. That's the thing. There's so many crimes, and the documents are all there, not just from the House Republicans. Kash Patel right now is probably sifting through a warehouse full of documents, okay? And he's working with Pam Bondi and he's working with the rest of them. So I'm really hoping that the Intel cabinet gets approved right away, and we'll see what happens. But I want to just real quick, I think Glenn, you're next on this, and then I want to move on to one other thing before we wrap up. Glenn, what are your thoughts?
I'll try to keep it brief.
Sure.
I would open up all the federal land and let them drill in all of that. The one woman I was listening to, I don't remember what petroleum company she was president of, and they were saying about, all these permits that the White House give them permissions to do, to go out on these lands and do that.
Yeah.
And what she was saying was you got to be a freaking idiot to even, just the infrastructure to get there would be in the billions. And if
Right.
not, then you're going to get there and then you're going to shut us down. We're not at risk.
Exactly.
So if they want to play that offshore bullshit game, how about throwing that all federal land is open for drilling now? And you can't, and then if you want to go with the laws or whatever from 53 or any of the others, make another one that says you can't stop them.
So in other words, just combat them with, I guess, taking other lands and doing whatever you want with them using the same rule. So in other words, if they want to protect things, then we can open things up using the same rule. I don't know.
As long as you do it,
That might work too. But remember, this is not an executive order that can just be erased and taken down as soon as Trump gets in. That's why they're using this archaic rule in law, because it is signed into law from 1953. That's what they're using. They know from an executive order standpoint, Trump could just come in and go, yeah, whatever, and just.
But they have to legislate it out. And to legislate it out, they can legislate it in, they can legislate it out.
It's possible, but with such a thin majority, we want to
But I mean,
avoid as much legislation as possible. I hate to say
people have
that.
to stand up. We have to stand up and tell them that we are sick of them.
Yeah.
Telling, running our lives and not cooperating with the president. And you better do this and thus and pass this and make sure that this happens. And they're going to have to do it. We're going to have to be aggressive. I don't know how to make people wake up like that.
Like I said about Elon Musk, his best possible job would be as an enforcer. He would just take every single Republican in the House and the Senate, lock them in a conference room, take their phones away, say, no one's leaving until you sign this pledge. Here's how it's going to go. We have a thin majority in the House. We have a majority, but not a huge majority in the Senate. Every single person needs to vote for Trump's agenda. If you do not, you will have your careers ended because I have the money, the power, and the clout to put your lights out. And that's what he ought to do. He ought to threaten them with their careers and say, don't test me. I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do. Get in line and start making America great again. And I don't know. That's going to be something that he's going to have to push for.
That's what Soros did anyway, right?
That's probably what Soros did. Yeah, he said, "Here's how it's going to go. I just stole the election for you folks. I just put in all these radical prosecutors that won't hold anybody in jail or prosecute anyone for stealing these elections. Here's what I want as payback. I want you to sign on to X, Y, and Z." So yes, you know,
But
you're kinda right.
he should have the power to open up any of the federal land that, you know, that is available for
Yeah,
drilling. And then, of course, they have to do it in a environmentally friendly way. You can't
Mhm.
just go in there and, you know,
right.
and, you know, but I mean, they do it through a lot of forestry and stuff like that. And 10 years later, you can't even see where they were. So,
Yep. All right, last subject, and we're going to go rapid fire around here. So, Big Johnson apparently is more than likely going to be the speaker again because of Trump's endorsement. Now, there's been reports that he doesn't have the votes, but from what I understand, Trump and his administration coming in are whipping up the no votes, and they are confident that he's going to be the next speaker. So, let's start with Little Mystery, and we'll go back around again. I know what I think of Mike Johnson. I know what you think of Mike Johnson, but why do you think Trump is supporting him?
I'm sure I'm wrong on this one, but I hope, like everything, is to expose Mike Johnson as the certified pussy we all know he is.
Okay, all right, good short answer. I like it. Is Walter still with us?
I'm here.
Okay, I don't see you anywhere, but what are your thoughts? Why is Trump supporting the backstabber Mike Johnson in your state, by the way?
Well, I'm going to go against the grain and I'm going to say out of a misplaced sense of loyalty. I think that Trump honestly believes Johnson's on his side and wants to help him implement his agenda, but I think Trump is very wrong.
Okay, got it. Jason, what about you? What are your thoughts on why
I
he's
agree.
supporting this Big
I
Johnson?
agree with Walter wholeheartedly on that. Yep. I
Okay,
agree with him exactly what he says.
okay. Carol, what are your thoughts on it?
I agree with Walter.
You agree with Walter. Okay. Liam, what are your thoughts?
Once again, Walter setting the pace here. I mean,
Okay,
Trump, you know how many rhinos Trump has endorsed? Maybe he's
sadly.
for good reason, for unity and all, but I mean,
Yeah, gotcha. All right. And let's see, Jeff and Pam, why is he supporting this Big Johnson?
Well, the other speakers, then the Republicans, before they voted him in, made them promise, Mitch McConnell, was it, or McCarthy, before Johnson, they made him promise, you're going to do this and this, and oh yes, I pinky swear, and then they turned. So it's a mistake.
I agree. It's a mistake, sort of. I'll explain here in a minute. Jeff, what are your thoughts on it, real quick?
I think Walter's right. I personally wish that Trump would have started a new party way back in 2015
Yeah, well, I
because
said
that would be
that.
the end of the GOP. I agree with you then too.
Yeah, I said that in 2020, right after they stole the election. I was screaming for another party. There's no question about it. Who did I not get? Carl?
Carl, Glenn, and me.
Go ahead, Carl. Why is he supporting Johnson? You're muted again. You're killing me.
just leave it unmuted, Carl. Unless
Okay,
you
there
got
you go.
gas and you don't want nobody to hear it or something. I don't know what's
Carl, please participate.
Go ahead. Why is he supporting Johnson?
Oh, maybe
You agree
maybe
with
I agree with Walter, but maybe
Everybody
he
agrees with Walter. Okay.
maybe
All right.
Trump raised the riot act or whatever you call it with
Rev the Riot Act.
Could have
the
been.
riot act that
That's one
Johnson.
plausible scenario for sure. Gail, what about you? Why is he
I think-
supporting Johnson?
Well, I mean, you may have, maybe there were enough no votes to get rid of him, maybe not. So, but the fight afterwards to elect a new speaker is going to hold things up. So
Now
they
you're thinking.
they can do that all over again in March.
I'm sorry, Walter, and the rest, but Gail is my my train of thought as well. Glenn, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that maybe Musk got a hold of him and told him, like you were saying earlier, about
Okay.
go with us
So-
or you're going to be going elsewhere.
Exactly. So, all right. So the one plausible way is he read him the riot act. He pulled him aside and said, "Look, MFer, because Trump does a lot of cursing in private. You are going to make sure that this agenda with this thin majority goes through. Number one, 100%. And if not, as Gail correctly pointed out, in March there'll be another election, and at that point they can switch speakers." Okay, so that's number one. Number two, my thought process here is they cannot afford even 1 day of a delay. And yes, we have a thin majority, an extremely thin majority. But if we have a prolonged speaker fight that goes 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25 rounds, how much are we losing in that first 100 days? So in this one instant, because of how small of a margin it is, I understand why he's supporting Mike Johnson, because he understands that time is of the essence. So Gail, congratulations, because that was my train of thought when I was going through everything on that. But the rest of them, I agree, he should not trust him. How many times can you get stabbed in the back and pull the knife out without realizing that these people are not your friends? And you're right, everybody else was correct in the fact that he shouldn't trust him. And he should not trust possibly some of his advisors that are telling him that. But I do understand the protracted fight for the gavel, and that could be the main reason why he relented and is supporting him. I don't think a lot of conservatives can think that through, sadly, and they're just attacking him for just, supporting him. But I think when you look and you pull the layers back, you can see that that's more than likely the reason why. And as Gail pointed out, they can take him out in March if he doesn't do what he's supposed to do right away within the first 100 days or whatever it might be. So okay, good. All right, Marlene, go ahead and flip the switch. Those are all my thoughts for this evening. Thank you all for joining me on the first Full Throttle. Hopefully we'll get more people and it'll actually be full throttle instead of driving 48 miles an hour in the fast lane listening to slow jazz, but we'll get there.
Right now you're listening.